What are the best questions to ask a sommelier? Or how about what it takes to become a sommelier? Well, that's exactly what we're going to learn tonight from our guest who joins me live from Vancouver. Hi, I'm Natalie McLean, editor of Canada's largest wine review site at nataliemclean.com. And we gather every Sunday night at 6 p.m. Eastern, that's Toronto, New York time, to talk to the most interesting people in the world of wine. Now, before I introduce our guest fully, in the comments below, let me know, do you think that the type of questions you ask a sommelier will guide you toward a better bottle in a restaurant? So I'm just going to check in and see who's joining us so far. And it looks like people are walking in the virtual door, which is awesome. Hello, Jason Davies. Francis says our sound and video is okay. Eric is, the video is good. Eric, maybe you've got your volume on mute. I'm not sure, but the other two are hearing us apparently. Oh, good. Eric's working for you now. All right. So as I said, in the comments below, do you think, yes or no, do the types of questions you ask a sommelier get you or guide you toward a better bottle in a restaurant? Hello, Douglas. Okay, so our guest this evening has been an active member of the Canadian wine industry for 17 years, working with several high-profile wine agencies. She holds an international sommelier diploma and has taught wine courses to hundreds of students. She's also the new BC president of the Canadian Association of Professional Sommeliers, that's CAPS, and she joins me live now from her office in Vancouver.
Hi, Natalie. Thanks for having me. I actually, believe it or not, so many years ago, do have that pinnacle moment in my mind. And I was working fine dining, just starting off my career at the Banff Springs Hotel many moons ago. And I was speaking to somebody who had just written her exam for her sommelier diploma. And I thought it was the most, as she was explaining the course to me, I had this epiphany and knew that was my destiny and knew I had to be in the wine industry. And I've taken my path forward ever since.
Over here, go. Okay, great. Leslie, sorry about that.
Okay.
I shouldn't taunt the tech gods. I really shouldn't.
I knew it.
But here we go. So hopefully the folks will tell me that they can hear me now because I think I've got it plugged in again. Always keep your audio plugged in. Okay, so Leslie, you said you have a particular story about Zinfandel while traveling in Australia. Maybe you can share that with us.
Yeah, I have many different stories throughout my career, and and all of them lead to the end result, which is don't take yourself too seriously. And this particular moment was one of my highlights, where I visited one of the top producers in Australia, but had traveled about 22 hours to get there, and my brain was not really 100% clued in. And the winemaker was explaining how innovative they were, and they had planted Zinfandel grape. And just out of the blue, I don't even know where the comment came from, but I said, "Did you plant a white or a red Zinfandel grape?" for people who may not know, all Zinfandel comes from the same grape. So I did not start off looking very, very smart in that exact moment.
That's very humble of you to share that with us.
I have many, and that's just goes to show you just don't take yourself too seriously. It's how you learn and grow in the wine industry.
Absolutely. That's such a good point. And then you had another story about being in the Douro in in Portugal, the famous wine region of the Douro. Maybe you can, let's just get out all the embarrassment at the top here.
Okay. This one is particularly, always comes to top of my 5 most embarrassing stories. And I was with a colleague, and we were fortunate enough to visit Graham's port house at the time. And the owner himself, Rupert Symington, was showing us around. And we had stepped into the old lagares where they hand stomped the grapes back in the day in order to extract the color and make an optimum port. And in these cement lagares, which are big troughs, they had these windows. So my colleague and I thought it would be really fun to take photos of each other through these little holes in the wall, until Rupert Symington informed us that's where the men would pee during their breaks on the foot stomping. So that quickly ended our giggling and fun, and we took things a little more seriously.
I guess they were well framed, those photos.
2 embarrassing stories right off the bat.
Excellent. You are one of us, Leslie. And I want to welcome Lois and Lori Kilmartin joins us. Hello, folks. All right. And if you have questions for Leslie, as I said, she is the new president in BC for the Canadian Association of Sommeliers, Professional Sommeliers, CAPS. They have regional chapters across the country, and of course, the National Global Association will be talking about that soon. So if you are enjoying this conversation, please take a moment to share this video and make a comment. And of course, while you're there, you can click like and follow if you want to know when we go live each time. And I want to let you know that at the end of this video, I will be sharing the winner of last week's contest. That's 2 bottles of premium Buena Vista wine and a signed copy of A Passion for Wine, their book. And I will be also, of course, announcing next week's guest. Leslie has generously agreed to offer a 30-minute consult by phone or Skype or whatever works for you technologically. So do share the video, and you can ask her about becoming a sommelier, stocking your cellar, whatever. She's got a wealth of information. All right, Leslie, back to you. Can you maybe take us to the best moment of your wine career to date? I'm sure there's many to come yet, but maybe what's been your favorite moment or best moment so far?
I think I've had many. It's hard to narrow down some of these moments, but I think the best moment was the first time I after studying so much throughout books and tasting wine, and then having the opportunity to travel overseas. There's been a few different wine regions, but every time it's the same thing where you step foot and you can touch the soil and taste the wines and have the local food and meet the winemakers and the wine principles of these properties that you study so much, and everything comes to life and you realize it just all makes sense. I don't know if that sums it up, but everything makes sense, and it just, I feel so lucky every time I get to do that, no matter how many times I've visited Italy or France. It just, every time it's the same thing. And I realize this is why I love it, and this is why I do it.
Ah, beautifully put. I have to agree with you. I think that once you have the exterior geography, it becomes part of your internal geography. You can really place those, you know, like a Burgundy can become so confusing. But if you've been to Meursault and Beaune and so on, and you've been there, you've walked there, you've smelled the wines there, I think it really, you can internalize it much better than just looking at wine labels and just tasting, even though that's important as well.
Absolutely. So, and yeah, to add on to it, also meeting some of the top wine people in the world who are maybe 5, 6 generations into the wine industry, and you realize they're the most passionate, humble people that you can meet in our whole industry. And they command so much respect, and there's a reason why they do what they do as well.
You know, as I say, when it comes to wine, it's often generational, and it's farming. I tend to call it fancied up farming, but it does have roots going back generation after generation, and it really, people do take pride. And I suppose that goes with any family business, but there's something special about, I think, a farming business and stretching back. on the generations. So I also want to welcome Ronald John Benzie, who's watching from Sydney, Australia. Hello,
Wow.
Ronald. Yeah. Colin is tuned in. Colin McCone has tuned in from Ottawa. And folks, just keep reposting your comments because they disappear off the screen after every 4 or 5. And if you have, Lori has a country or a question. What country or area, Leslie, is your favorite place to visit for wine? Good question.
Well, I have to say, I don't like to narrow it down or pick favorites, but it's 100% Italy for me. The food, the wines, the regions, I definitely have my heart from the north to the southern part of Italy. So,
is there a particular part of Italy or a memory you have of visiting Italy? Maybe it was a sumptuous dinner or something that stood out in Italy itself?
Yeah, there's been so many, and it's so many regions, and I also love the food of the regions, which I think is why I'm so passionate about Italy. But I probably have a favorite wine and food story from every region. But I think the first time I visited was actually in Tuscany. And it was quite a long time ago in 2003, and I had the opportunity to go visit the Antinori family, which is 26 generations into the wine industry, and just to stay in an old castle. And I had the local food of the region and had the opportunity to try their Super Tuscans for the first time. And the pairings were just magic for me. There was some braised rabbit at the time. There was the pastas that were homemade. And the funny thing about it is every time I've been to Italy, you get served the antipasto to start and you enjoy it, and the fresh olive oil over the prosciutto and some of the other antipasto. And my mouth is watering just thinking about it.
Mine too. Good job.
And it's
good job.
supper time there, not here. And then the fresh bread and the olive oil and the wines that you have. And then you go into the pasta courses and you think, oh, I'm in heaven. I can just keep eating this. And then the meat course is served. And that's when you think, okay, how can I continue on? But as the meal progresses and the wines progress and the time goes on, you realize it's also about the sharing and the time. It's not just sitting down and eating quickly and leaving. The meals take hours, and there's lots of great conversation and learning and sharing stories and tasting wines at the same time, as well as the local cuisine.
Absolutely.
And I've had that in every region.
Yeah, that sounds great. You know, you're reminding me of my first trip as well to Italy, which was Tuscany, and it was before I even started writing about wine. But we went and we had this multi-course, only we didn't realize, so they came with the antipasti, so we had that. And then we had the lasagna. It was so good that we asked for seconds, not realizing that there were so many more courses to come, and, didn't want to offend anybody by not trying the rest of them. But it was like we filled up on lasagna, and it was like, oh, yeah, just 6 more courses. Oy.
Yeah,
but
that's the hard thing. It's a marathon sometimes.
It is, but it's what we do. It's our professional duty, yes. And just for those who may not be aware, what are Super Tuscan wines?
So Super Tuscan wines, I don't have the exact dates in my head, but I believe it was the late 70s. I'll have to look that up because I don't want to give any misinformation. And the wine laws in Italy are so strict, as your viewers may or may not know, and everything is determined by the regulated regions of what grapes can come, how many, what's grown there. And a couple producers decided, you know what? I'm going to produce a wine with some international grapes that, of course, were not within the wine laws. And they produced a wine with some Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon. They produced some grapes that were not in the regulated region. And, of course, because of this, they had to call it like an IGT at the time, which was the I'm not going to pronounce Italian right now, but basically wines of the country, so they can come from anywhere within Italy. So they had to declassify from the top level down to that level. And they, and of course, the media grabbed onto it and it took off. And these wines that were supposed to be, something innovative and exciting became the predominant, some of the most popular wines today of Italy. And some of those examples might be Sassicaia, Solaya, Tignanello, just to name a couple of them, Ornellaia. The Oz, I call them.
Yes, and they give you pause, because they're also some of the most expensive wines, which is,
Yes.
and is it Sassicaia?
They were not at the start. They were not. They were,
Okay.
you know, maybe a third of the price they are today. But because people didn't know what the response was going to be on those wines. But
Yeah.
they're also from some of the top vineyard sites in
Absolutely.
Bulgari on the coast of Tuscany.
They just wanted the freedom to do what they thought was best for the bottle. And Sassicaia, I think, has its own appellation, which was kind of pivotal as well. Lori is going to Abruzzo in May, and she wonders if you have any tips for wine and food there, or if anything stands out. I don't know if Abruzzo is one of the regions you've visited before.
No, I haven't visited that region at all, but I think when you go to any region in Italy, it's about trying the local cuisine and asking for the local wines. And I mean, I find some of the best wines in Italy are the most unassuming wines that are made in the local villages that go along with the local food. So I think it's just about asking those questions, and I apologize, I haven't been to that area.
Italy's a big country. Greg says terroir is the salient culture you encounter. I agree. Seeing it takes it from the abstract and puts it within reach. Well put there, Greg. And Paul Hollander says, we enjoy Italian wines, northern Italy in particular, and are learning more about Sicily. Of course, Sicily is the island in the south, and Nera d'Avola, a nice big reds come from there. All right, so back to our topic. We took a little side tour to Italy, which was fun.
That was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you remember the most memorable? There was something else that you had mentioned to me on one of the first nights after becoming a wine steward. The lead sommelier had you serve a table, and you didn't know who you were serving. Maybe you can tell us about that.
This isn't as embarrassing as my first two wine stories, but I had just started my studies. I had not completed my sommelier diploma at the time, but was very enthusiastic and studying hard. And the lead sommelier of the restaurant came up and said, "Leslie, you've got to go serve this table and just make sure they're VIPs." And so I went over and served the table, and, you know, they ordered wines that required decanting, things I was just learning about. So I put every effort I could into the table, but had no idea who they were at the end. And I'll give the great reveal of who they were. It was the Baron and Baroness Rothschild at the time, and they were visiting. It was in Victoria, BC, actually, and that always stands out to me because it was just a pinnacle moment in my serving career, I should say, my wine career.
What did they order? Their own wine, or?
You know, I don't remember. Okay. It was so long ago, but I do remember it was a big red that required decantation for aeration, not for sediment. So it wasn't an old wine. But, you know, as you're just learning, it can be nerve-wracking to make sure you have the optimal temperature and the right glassware and everything else ready to go. And that when you're opening a cork, no matter who the table is, you want to make sure that, you know, you're doing a proper job of it. And everything was flawless at that table. That was the nice thing.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you're
doesn't always happen.
Just like the technology. But yes, you're already sort of getting into the role of the sommelier. But I'm first going to acknowledge Beverly has joined us. And I think happy birthday is in order, Beverly, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm so glad you joined us here. And Lori's asking, do you work as a sommelier now? But you work with a wine agency today.
Yeah,
correct?
So I don't work as a sommelier on the floor. I haven't for the last maybe 15 years. I wear two separate hats in my career, and one is I work with a wine agency now, importing wines from around the world. And my other side of my hat is I'm an educator and have kept that going for many years, as well as now working volunteer time with the CAPS Association. So I stay very active within the sommelier community throughout the agency as well as through the CAPS Association. Fantastic. But I don't work in that capacity anymore.
Okay. Okay, well, you've done it all, so that's great. You bring all of this diverse experience in the wine industry to our conversation, which is fantastic. So I'm tempted to go in multiple directions, but let's talk about CAPS, the Canadian Association of Professional Sommeliers. What does CAPS do? Does it grant certification? Are there sort of multiple levels of courses you take and then you graduate as a certified sommelier?
It's a good question. So CAPS is a national association. I actually work with them on the national level as well. It originated in Quebec and Ontario and has quite a large membership in both those provinces. And then the Maritimes came on board. So there's a very large supportive community of CAPS in Halifax, in Prince Edward Island. And after that was Manitoba. And then BC came on 4 years ago. So there's a couple things that CAPS is involved with. One is that it is an association. And for many years as I was studying and completed my studies, all I wanted to have was an association that you could interact with other people, a networking association, and encompasses all educational aspects. And that's essentially what CAPS is on the trade level. There is also a very large membership, as you probably know, Natalie, with Ontario, of consumers and people who are just interested in wine and want to attend different events. And CAPS is very strong in Quebec and Ontario from that perspective. We do have an educational component, so there are different levels of courses being offered in different provinces from across Canada. So, and that would be an entry level starting into your wine career for people who just want to learn more about wine, for people who work in our industry. And that is a basic level one, all the way up to the diploma level of CAPS, which is about a 1-year intensive study program. We are just in British Columbia going to be launching the courses for the first time in fall of 2018. So we don't have them yet. But that is one of the biggest umbrellas of CAPS is the courses. And we're only 4 years in now into British Columbia. So it's taken a little while for us to get up and running. And then one of the other areas that's very important for us is our competitions. Mm-hmm. So we run different provincial competitions. In most provinces, I believe it's every 2 years. But in British Columbia, we run a provincial CAPS sommelier competition every single year due to our partnership with the Vancouver International Wine Festival. So I know, Natalie, you've attended the wine festival in the past. And so the festival announces the Somm of the Year, and that's a partnership with CAPS. So we're much busier here running our provincial competitions. And then the winners of those provincial competitions will go compete on the national level and become the best sommelier of Canada. And that competition takes place in a different province every 3 years. And in fact, last fall was here in Vancouver, and Carl Villeneuve from Quebec took those honors. Wow. And then the most exciting thing, I think, that on the competition front is, for the first time in history, Canada is about to host the Americas competition. So the Americas competition is always held in one of the Americas, so North America, South America, and 24 of the world's top sommeliers will be coming to Montreal this May to compete. And it's the first time I mentioned ever in Canada, so we're very excited about that. We do have 2 Canadians that will be participating in this competition. And if anyone can get to Montreal, or if you're in Montreal and you have the opportunity to attend, seeing the live portion of a competition, and you're interested in wine, it's unbelievable.
So you can learn a lot just by watching. Like they're serving judges and being judged on all their criteria, like if they're presenting the bottle correctly and pouring and decanting and all that.
Yes, 100%. And I don't know if anyone's had the opportunity to see the on Netflix now, the movie Somm, or when it's out. Yes. And just watching that one movie gives me chills every time as I watch those those competitors, blind tasting live, and
Yes.
that's all done live at this competition. And you're
Wow.
seeing the best of the world, which is unbelievable.
That's great. And I think you can,
Yeah.
as a consumer, even if you don't want to become a sommelier, it's educational, and you're saying that, but you see what really the pros do and what you can expect if you want good wine service in a restaurant. I know not every restaurant has a designated sommelier, but for restaurants that care about the wine list, often there's someone there, either the person who bought the wines or the bartender, somebody is knowledgeable enough to talk to you about the wines, and you know kind of what you can expect, especially if you're buying a relatively pricey wine. Actually, speaking of that, not that your wine is expensive, but you need to tell me what's in your glass tonight, Leslie, please.
Right. So tonight I will, it's still a little bit early in Vancouver, but there's always a good time. It's past noon to drink wine. So
Yeah.
I'm having the Dry Creek Heritage Vine Zinfandel tonight.
Can you hold it right up to the camera? Your camera
Sure.
lens? Yes, then we'll see the label. There we go. Got it. Dry
And
Creek.
this is in honor of the California Wine Fair is being held in
Okay.
Vancouver tomorrow. So I thought, oh, let's try something from California.
That's
And
awesome.
I'm now inspired from all our conversation of all I think about in the day is what am I going to make for dinner tonight? So all I'm thinking now about is I'm going to stop and get some nice, maybe even some beef tenderloin or something to grill tonight, and maybe some,
Great.
not even flank steak, and do something beautiful with the Zinfandel. And I'm also thinking Italian in my head over and over again.
Why choose? Have both.
Yeah. And so now I'm curious to see what you have in your glass.
Well, in honor of you, Leslie, I chose a BC wine tonight. It is Cedar Creek. It's the Riesling, Platinum Riesling. And I'm a big fan of Cedar Creek. Great.
Yes,
I mean,
it's a
there's just so many.
favorite.
I wish
It's
we got more
fantastic.
BC wines here. I really do. And that, of course, is a interprovincial trade barrier issue, which is a whole topic in and of itself. But I am such a huge fan of BC wines. I mean, there's just so many stellar wineries, and I know someday we'll get more of them.
Well, there's so many fantastic BC wines now, and it's, I find it hard to keep up with all the producers opening and with different vintages. But if you have not visited the Okanagan Valley, I highly, highly recommend it. It's phenomenal.
Bob Levesque says, love California Zins, but I don't think we get that one here. We don't get that one here. Sonoma. Okay, I don't know if Bob is in Sonoma. And Paul says, we enjoyed the movie Somm. And Lori's asking, which two Canadians are competing in Montreal, Canadian Somms, in that competition?
Yeah, so it's Carl Villeneuve, who just came first in our Canadian competition.
Okay.
And I'm going to say this wrong, Pierre-Alexis Soulier, I'm going to say it wrong.
That's okay.
From Quebec as well, who was a runner-up, and he is also working in California right now. But our two top candidates from the national competition.
Okay.
We have had some winners from Canada in the past of this competition, including Veronique Rivet, who has won this before. So, I mean, Quebec is very strong. One thing people may not realize for these competitions on the not on the provincial level, but on the national and international level, is that you have to compete in a second language that's not your own. And it has to be French, Italian, or Spanish.
Wow.
I'm not fully understanding of why only those three languages, but those are from the International Association. And so to watch people competing in a second language that's not their own is also very, very interesting. And our provincial candidates last year had a lot of intensive studying on French.
Wow.
To compete on the national level. And of course, Quebec being so bilingual, they have an advantage on that side if you're already working as a bilingual.
I thought it was tough enough just remembering all of the wines and the service and everything. No, but you're going to have to use not your mother tongue. That's amazing.
Yes.
That is truly amazing. So Beverly is drinking Fess Parker Syrah. That's a lovely wine. Rick's got... why do we have provincial regulations? It should be open to all provinces. Rick, that is another Sunday Night Sipper Club show in and of itself, and we will do that. We'll get somebody on here from Free My Grapes or whatever, but I think it's just bizarre that we have these trade barriers between provinces for what is a true grassroots agricultural product that we should be able to enjoy coast to coast. Lori Kilmartin says, I've been to Veronique Rivest's bar and restaurant in Hull, Quebec. It's fabulous. It's called Soif, meaning thirst, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's great. And Paul Hollander says he's got a 2014 Toscana in his glass.
Oh, nice.
All right. So, and again, we diverge. I've led us off the path, but that's fantastic. It's a really great conversation. So, Leslie, what would be the best question you think you could ask a sommelier? You might have several, but what would you kick off with if you're in a restaurant, you know the person is knowledgeable about wine, whether they're designated a sommelier or not, but what would you ask as a starting point to get a good wine from their list?
Well, I think you touched on it earlier, Natalie, which is they're the experts of their program. So they have put a lot of work, whether it is a sommelier or wine director, has put a lot of work into writing that wine list and finding wines that suit their style of restaurant, the food, and all different levels. So I think the first thing I would start with is asking is, being very, very straight up and saying, what's your recommendation? Never hesitate to say, this is my budget, this is what I'm eating, and I'd really love your recommendation. And I think that's something people don't do enough of. Maybe there's an intimidation factor. People feel they should be spending more money or if they're not buying the most expensive bottle on the list, that they're afraid to ask for that. But I think the most important thing to ask is to say, what's your favorite wine and what would you recommend with this food? And this is my budget, and never hesitate to have that conversation.
Absolutely. And you hit it right on the head, because good restaurants also will often have wines you haven't seen in the liquor store. So yes, they're the expert on their list. And to get them started, what are you excited about? What do you recommend? I mean, you're in for a new taste experience at a restaurant. So put yourselves into the hands of the sommelier. I think that's the best way to go. It's great advice. And folks, if you're enjoying this conversation, take a moment to share this video and comment on why you're enjoying it, because at the next week, we will be drawing for someone who will win a 30-minute consultation with Leslie. You can ask her anything about getting into the wine industry, stocking your cellar, pairings, food and wine pairings. And, while you're there, you can click follow and like, and then you'll know always when we go live. And at the end of this tonight, I'll be announcing the winner of last week's contest, which is 2 bottles of premium Buena Vista wine and a signed copy of Passion for Wine from our guests, Jean-Charles Boisset and Marnie Old, who were on last week. All right. Christian says, is Leslie on Twitter? So he's looking to connect with you on Twitter. Do you have a Twitter handle, Leslie?
Yeah, I do. It's at Fine Wine Consult.
Excellent. Excellent. David Brown, well done, Leslie, Dad and Linda. Okay.
That's my dad.
That's your dad. I love it when parents come in. Excellent. You've got the home team crowd. That's great.
He lives in Burlington.
Awesome. Hometown proud. And Rick Scott says, that's great advice, Leslie. James Norton is drinking, James Norton is drinking the 2014 Chalk Hill Estate Chardonnay from California. And I think Christian is off to find you on Twitter. All right. So let's think about, is there a winemaker you admire most in the world? And sort of why do you admire him or her?
There's so many winemakers that I've had the opportunity to meet and work with, and so many that I admire. But I think there's one person in the industry that I actually really admire, look up to, and that is Laura Katina. And I don't know if you've had the opportunity to meet Laura, but she is an inspiration to me on many different levels. Mm-hmm. She's the 3rd generation of the Katina winery in Argentina. Yeah. She is she runs the winery now. She's taken over the entire winemaker, or overseeing everything to do with the winemaking, although they have a chief winemaker. The winery itself. She lives in San Francisco, has 3 kids, and is also a full-time medical doctor.
Yeah, she's an
And
emergency room doctor. Doesn't that make you feel
yes,
very slothful? Yes, I'm running the winery. I have 3 kids, and I'm emergency room. Actually, Leslie, she was a guest here probably 2 or 3 months ago. So she is a
okay.
wonderful woman, and she knows how to do tango dancing like professionally.
Oh, I know.
It
And
just
she
goes on and
sings
on.
in 5 languages. And as a female in the industry, number one, I find her an inspiration that she can lead and manage so many different things. And secondly, is anything coming up on the video from my screen?
No,
Oh,
it's just
sorry.
you.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's
I
all
was
right.
having a technical issue. And secondly, I have seen her sing in tango, and she's incredible. But also her drive, her passion for what she does, her dedication towards her family and this industry is very inspiring to me on many levels.
And if there was one person, living or dead, that you could share a bottle of wine with, who would that be?
Oh, I don't know. There's so many as well. I'd love to meet, and not narrowing it down to one person, but I'd love the opportunity to meet the pioneers of the wine industry, to go back in time and meet, Lily Bollinger, and go sit and see the monks in action, and when they built the wine regions of Burgundy, or the subregions of Burgundy, and just I'd love to meet anyone historical in the wine industry who's been an influence. If there was one person, that would be hard for me to narrow it down, because I find I love to learn from so many different people. So
Absolutely.
it's not a perfect answer to that
No, it's
question.
great. You could have a dinner party with monks and Louise Pomery and other people scattered
Yes.
around the dinner table. Be a good discussion.
The, is there somebody you would have specifically?
Wow, way to turn the tables. Let's see. I would go with Thomas Jefferson because he was a
Okay.
Renaissance man. Of course, one of
Yeah.
the founding fathers of the United States. Perhaps I should choose someone Canadian, but we don't have a heritage that far back of making wine, or at least commercially.
Mhm.
And I just loved, he was always innovating, and he was, experimenting with grape plantings from Bordeaux. And I have never thought about that, but I would love to sit down and have some Bordeaux with him. Not the Virginia Monticello stuff. Thank you. That needs time. And maybe today that would be good stuff. But what he brought over from Bordeaux, we would share that and have a good chat.
Okay, well, maybe we should just have a dinner party and then invite all our guests.
Yeah,
And
Jefferson, the monks, Louise Pomeroy.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good dinner party.
Yeah, it should be good.
Lois says, does Leslie have any comments on wines produced in China? And let me just say before I jump to there, because Pierre Bellil says Thomas Jefferson would bring the fine Bordeaux, and she is enjoying a glass of Red Wolf Blast Cabernet Sauvignon from the McLaren Vale 2016, a limited edition with hockey designs. Interesting. But back to Lois. Do you have any, I don't know if you've tasted many or any wines from China?
I have tasted a couple wines from China, but not for several years. I do know that they're planting a lot of vineyards right now, and we're going to start to see some more wines emerge from the region. There's lots of international consultants that are going into China and have gone in to assist with the viticulture and vinification. But other than that, I don't. The wine I tasted was several years ago, I should say, not many. And I would say that it's not a top memory for me. But I look forward to tasting some new wines as the region emerges.
That's very diplomatic. And like all regions, it needs time for the vines to develop, for the winemakers to realize what can come from their terroir. Lois is saying the Mongolians region. Interesting. Okay, so let's get back to some of these other questions I've been dying to ask you, Leslie.
Okay.
I'll throw one out here. The weirdest or most unusual food and wine pairing that you've had ever. Can you think back to something like that?
The weirdest or most unusual. So I'm sure I've had weird wine pairings just through trial and error over the years. But one of the most interesting pairings I've ever had, I attended a dinner many moons ago now, and it was a 7-course dinner, all Rieslings from the same producer and same village, but different Predicat levels. So
is that sweetness levels, Predicat?
Yeah, the different sweetness, it's measured by the weight of the sugar levels at harvest.
Okay.
And that, if you've seen those wines before, it goes from Cabinet to Spätlese to Auslese. And it was very interesting because you think, I'm going to have a Riesling, I'm going to pair it with A, B, and C, but it was paired with the meats of the course, the desserts of the course. And that's when you realize that how powerful some white wines can be as well. And especially Riesling being one of the most diverse and powerful.
Absolutely.
But that's probably one of the most interesting experiences that stand out.
Yeah.
Because you think, where's the red to go with this main course?
Right.
And it was another Riesling that came out with venison. I specifically remember the pairing.
Wow. And again, you're triggering memories for me when I was with Prudart, I think it was. Prudart, and they were doing, the caramelized meats had this touch of sweetness, and it went so well with a Riesling that had a bit more, like the Spätlese, a bit more sweetness on it. It was absolutely lovely.
Delicious.
Yes. So I know you have a favorite wine gadget that you have handy. I would love to see how you use it because I've bought one and not used it yet. So maybe you can tell us what it is and maybe give us a little demo.
Sure. So we were talking earlier just about, I was mentioning I had the Corbin system here with me tonight, just in case I wanted to dabble in a couple more bottles. And I do have a couple more bottles here that I can dabble in. I wasn't specifically sticking to California, but didn't want to open so many bottles. So the Corbin system, it is used in restaurants now. A lot of restaurants use it, and it's a wine preservation system that you can pour a glass of wine through the cork. It has a needle. I'll give you a demonstration of how it works. And you're not opening the bottle of wine, so it'll last longer. So if you, for example, collect different wines and want to taste them as they develop, you can use the Corbin. I would look up exactly how long the bottle lasts after that fact, but I do know several people, for example, who leave wines in their cellar and go in and taste at different stages and say, okay, this wine is tasting beautifully now. Let's open it and let's get ready to drink it. So
that sounds ideal.
I think for at least 7 months after, but I don't know if there's any new. As with the wine industry and with any other industry, information is always changing. So
absolutely. So you're saying once you puncture the cork with the needle of the Coravin, it's good for another 7 months?
I think it's 7 months. You might want to just double check it because, and it depends how the wine is kept and everything else, but you are imparting a little bit of gas into the wine when you're doing it. Okay. So the wine is not untouched. You are putting a little bit of the gas in. So I'll give you a demonstration here. Try this one here. So basically, you can use this on white or red. They have a new system coming up for sparkling wine, so don't use it on sparkling wines. And basically, it's a contraption. It's got the needle. The little canister of gas is in the bottom here, and it's very, very user-friendly. All you do is you don't even have to take the capsule of the bottle off unless it's a preference, and you push the needle right into the bottle.
Wow.
I'm going to have to do some creative. I'll just finish this one.
That's good. Thank you for doing that.
A spit back in there. And then all you do, if everyone can see this, is you impart a little bit of the gas and the wine comes out.
Oh, wow.
And you only want to push it once for different pours.
Okay.
But I do know many restaurants are using the system now so that they can pour some very premium wines by the glass without opening. And all you do is lift it up, and that's it.
The cork is still in there, and because the cork is a bit spongy, it sort of closes in on the hole you created with the needle, if I understand it.
Exactly. Right. And so if you're a restaurateur or you're at home and you have a bottle of wine that you don't want to open because, you know, in 2 days the wine will start to oxidize. This system is very good for that reason, because you can use it, and 7 months might be a long time. So I'm going to double check that timeline and let you know, Natalie, because I don't want to give false information.
That's all right.
And in our world, in the importer world, we use it for samples too.
Right.
It can be used for top-end samples so that we're not constantly opening full bottles. Yeah. Restaurants use it to pour those premium wines by the glass so they can keep the bottle for several weeks or months, and they know that it's not going to spoil if they're opening a really expensive bottle. So
absolutely,
it's exciting.
Lori asked, "What's the cost?" Yes, I have to. The cost is
the entry-level systems, I think, are about $250.
Okay.
And they can go up from there. So they're not inexpensive.
No.
But if you think about what you want to use it for, or you might be somebody that likes gadgets on wine, and this is the newest technology, and you also might just look at the cost of how much wine is actually spoiled. Although that doesn't really happen in our world, but in my world.
No wine left behind.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you'll have to try yours, Natalie.
I will. I have to get on it. Yep. Oh,
and you can purchase them online. I don't know about other provinces. There is a distributor here in British Columbia. Yeah. But I would just look online under Corbin.
Amazon, Bed Bath & Beyond, they all have them, I think.
Okay.
Marie Pierre says, great practical gift idea. Corbin, genius. Thanks for the tip. Excellent. Jason, it's 200 pounds for the Model 1. Okay, he's talking about pounds, so that I guess double that in the UK. Leslie, it's already past 6:45, and so this just went like that. Brilliant. So as we wrap up, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to share, and or where can we find you online?
I don't know. There's so many things to always talk about with wine, right?
We'll have to have a part 2.
I feel like we're actually just face to face having a drink of wine together, which is so nice.
Oh, that's lovely. That's great.
And all your viewers and their questions. You can find me. I gave you my Twitter handle before. I'm on Instagram as well at Leslie Brown 4. I'm happy to give out. You can find me through the Canadian Association of Professional Sommelier website for British Columbia. I think my email address and all my information is on there as well. Awesome. And never forget LinkedIn.
That's right. You're all over the place. And then you we'll jump. You and I will jump back into these comments later to just to answer, and then maybe we can post your Twitter handle there as well, and other places that people can find you, caps and so on. So that would be great. All right. Well, Leslie, thank you so much for joining us tonight. That was a fabulous discussion. Lots of great practical tips and advice, whether we're just consumers enjoying a great bottle in a restaurant, or for those who have leanings toward getting into the industry or thinking about becoming a sommelier. Thank you so much for all of this great information.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Natalie. And anytime you want to chat, just give me a call.
Absolutely. I will.
Sometime soon.
Absolutely. That would be great. All right, Leslie, I will say goodbye for now, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, cheers. All right, folks. That was fantastic. So stay tuned with me for a moment, because I will be announcing the winner of last week's contest, which is 2 bottles of Buena Vista wine from California, very premium winery, and also a signed book of Passion for Wine. So remember that you can win the prize for this week, which is a 30-minute consult with Leslie Brown. She's charming, by phone, Skype, however you guys want to connect. You can ask her anything about food and wine pairing, planning a dinner party, getting into the wine business, planning your cellar, your wine cellar. That's all you have to do. Share, comment, like, follow, etc. And the other thing you should know is that if you want to get my 5 tips on how to become the wine expert among your friends, just go to nataliemclean.com/expert. I've got a free PDF for you there if you are interested in that. I will also be announcing next week. Take a moment and post what was the most interesting thing that you learned tonight in the comments section below. I would love to know which tip or gadget suggestion comment that you enjoyed the most. And of course, you can always connect with me on all the social media channels. It's always my URL / whatever the channel is, Facebook, Twitter, etc. It'll redirect you to where I am on those social media channels. And finally, I have a bonus tasting, as always, every Sunday for the members of our Get Wine Smart course. There's a tasting at 7 p.m., which is only 10 minutes from now. We are going to be tasting wines that have been aged in bourbon barrels. Does it make a difference? We're going to find out. All right, folks. So I need a drum roll. I need the noisemaker. Let's see if I'll press the right one. I don't want to do a... Oh, no. I pressed the police siren. No. Not... Wrong sound effect. Let's see. There we go. So the winner of last week's competition, or contest, I guess, and she is going to get 2 bottles of Buena Vista wine and a signed copy of A Passion for Wine, and that is Andrea Shapiro. Andrea Shapiro, congratulations. She may not be with us tonight, but she will be contacted. And also, I wanted to announce who... We're looking at Earth Day and organic wines and biodynamic wines. So we've got Thomas Balchador. He's been on the show a long time ago, more than a year ago, and he is so good. He's not only a brilliant winemaker, but he's a former journalist for the Montreal Gazette, so the man knows how to tell a wickedly good story. So that's April 22nd. Next weekend is all about Malbec, because we're going to be getting warmed up for Malbec Day, and we've got a woman winemaker from Alamos Winery in Argentina. She's a dynamo. So she joins us next Sunday, then Thomas Balchador. And so, folks, I really, really appreciate it. You're welcome, Beverly. Eric says, after seeing this segment, I'll be sure to watch more whenever you can. Well, just be sure to press the like and the follow. You'll be notified, Eric. Thank you so much. Jen, I'm glad you enjoyed this conversation, sharing the time and tips. Excellent. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next week. Get some Malbec in your glass. Let's gear up for Malbec Day. You're welcome, Christian. And I will sip with you again soon. Take care, everybody.